All right, if you're thinking about setting up a company in St. Kitts and Nevis, wanted to go over some regulations and stuff that you have, uh, you have to go through and kind of make a comparison with the United States and also with Panama, because I lived in Panama for a while too. And if you're a libertarian and you don't like a lot of regulations, because I'm going to tell you something, one of the things that I hate worse than taxes is regulation can drive you nuts. And this is a thing that I looked at big when I came to St. Kitts. To give you an example, most people don't realize this, but to get a real estate license in St. Kitts, you don't even have to take a test. I mean, it's incredible. In Panama, you do have to take a test, and you also have to be a citizen of both places, Panama and St. Kitts, to get in both industries. Now, obviously, being a citizen in Panama, it's going to take you 10 to 20 years to get the passport. They say 5 years you can apply, but you're not going to get it after 5 years, I can tell you that. I know people have been there for 17 years and still have not gotten it, in Panama. Now, let's look at St. Kitts. St. Kitts, you can get the passport as quick as 45 days, the citizenship and passport. You will have to, for real estate, you will not have to take a test. There are very few countries still left in the world that have, the regulation under control in the country. Like, for instance, Somalia, there's not many regs there, but who in the hell wants to live there? It's like there's no rule of law there. It's awful. That's the thing I do like about St. Kitts. They know enough to get the rule of law under control, but they like people to run their own business. They don't want too much control over their lives and stuff in their business. This is a libertarian empire, if you like that type of thing. Now you might say, well, Tom, if a person doesn't have to take a test in real estate, what are your chances of having problems? Well, I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen any problems down here with realtors. I've seen it more with lawyers than I have with realtors. There's been quite a few problems with lawyers in St. Kitts I've seen. But I just haven't seen it with real estate agents. Now, that being said, I would not, if you're going to be getting a property, I would stick with somebody who's been in the business at least 5 or 10 years. Also, folks, if you want to legally get your income taxes to zero, how to get a second passport as quick as 45 days, do 3 things. Hit the subscribe button on the right of your screen. You'll get new videos automatically as they come out. And I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, just put it below. Number 3 is go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, and just ask for some help. You got to use some common sense when you do business with somebody. And I've heard people in the U.S. talk about the real estate test really didn't help them that much in the business, because most of the stuff you learn on the job, and that's the way it is here. I mean, some of that stuff you use in real estate, but a lot of stuff you don't. I mean, I took the insurance test in the U.S., and most of that stuff I never used at all. It was just a lot of BS. But now let's look at Panama, for instance. You would have to take a test to get in the insurance business. Believe it or not, in St. Kitts, you don't, okay? Now, all you need is a license, and I'll be honest with you, you don't even have to have experience. You have to fill out a form, but you don't even have to have experience. You can literally come in flat and get started, but you're responsible for anything that you screw up on. And that's why I tell people, use good common sense when you deal with people. Make sure they've been in the business for a while before you do business with them, okay? It's that's just common sense, okay? I mean, there's people been in real estate for years and years and years in the U.S., and they end up screwing up, okay? So, you do want somebody with experience when you're dealing with them. Not so much the test, but they need to know something about titles and things like this, so you're not going to have a real problem, okay? Now, they don't do title work anyway. That's done by lawyers as far as the title being switched over from the seller to the buyer. Now, I mean, that's pretty neat to know, though. I mean, you don't have all these regulations and headaches and crap that you got to deal with. You don't even have to file a tax return here unless you've got a local business. Now, if you're a U.S. citizen, that's different. I'm assuming that you're not a U.S. citizen. You've broken away your tax ties from a high tax country. that taxes worldwide income based on residency. If it's a U.S. citizen, they're going to tax you on your worldwide income until you end up relinquishing that citizenship and passport, okay? So, you know, if you want to get around that, that's the easiest way to do that. But I'm assuming, what I'm telling you is assuming that you've done that. If you haven't done it, then yes, you would still have to file, and you have to file the Foreign Overseas Exclusion Tax Form, and that's if you qualify for it. You don't automatically qualify for that form if you're outside the U.S. There is a qualification. We've got videos on that you can look at that talk about that. So if you really want to get around regulations, St. Kitts is a lot less regulated than Panama is. But I'm going to tell you, Panama is less regulated than the U.S. is, okay, by far. In fact, you can literally live in Panama if you're not a U.S. citizen, you're not resident in a country that taxes worldwide income, and you haven't broken those ties away from that country yet, then you would have to still declare your taxes. Even if you were living in Panama, you've got to break away the citizenship guidelines of the U.S., and you have to relinquish your U.S. citizenship, and you would have to break the ties if you're in a country that taxes worldwide income. And you're a resident in that country, okay? So just coming to Panama and planting yourself down, it's more to that. But I'm assuming you've done these other factors, okay? But Panama, you don't have to file a tax return if you live there unless you've got a local business, okay? And but I'll tell you this across the board, insurance, real estate, you do have to, you have to pass a test in both of those businesses for Panama, neither in St. Kitts. That's pretty unbelievable when you have that. But like I said, you get in that business, you're responsible if something comes up. Now, one thing I will tell you, unless they've just come out with this, because I didn't check this, but they don't even require errors and omissions. I know they don't with real estate. I don't even think they did. They used to didn't buy on insurance even in St. Kitts, okay? But in real estate, they do require, there are some requirements that you have to actually get in that business. They're pretty elementary. I mean, it's nothing complicated. Now, and I'm going to go over those with you also. Some other professions do require you to take tests. This is not exclusive of all of them. I'm just going to tell you, a doctor, lawyer, you're going to have to pass, you're going to have to go through medical school. You're going to have to go through law school, okay? And even if you got your law degree in the U.S., if you came to St. Kitts, you still might have to do some things, okay? And they could have laws dealing with citizenship. It depends on who's in office. The laws changed. I don't want to be talking specifics here because we would have to check to see what business it is. But there are protected businesses in St. Kitts that you have to be a citizen, and I've mentioned this in the past, to be able to get in those fields. And I've even mentioned my case where I even had citizenship, okay? And for 4 years, they didn't want me to get in the real estate business, the government at that time. And that government now is back in office. Now there's a different guy at the top than there was back then, but that government is now in office now, okay? Now I can't imagine them pulling that again. I had to hire a lawyer, and I was almost ready to go to court on it because they basically at the very top, they said that I wasn't born in St. Kitts. And of course, the guy knew that that wasn't law, okay? I think basically they didn't want an outsider coming in and getting involved with what they call a protected field. But the only difference between an economic citizen and someone who's naturalized or born in St. Kitts is, or let's just say born in St. Kitts or being natural or getting economic citizenship, is you can't run for public office, okay? Other than that, you have all the rights that a regular citizen has, including the right to work. Now, obviously, the license was given to me, but I had to hire a lawyer, almost ready to go to court, almost in a lawsuit over it. And it took that to actually get through that. And that's why I tell people, if you come to St. Kitts and you don't get citizenship, and you come down here for the tax benefits and everything, can you start a business without getting citizenship? Yeah, but I'm going to tell you it's a lot more difficult. And if you don't plan on hiring people and proving you're going to hire people, and the more you hire, the more likely you can actually work if you're not a citizen, because you can come down here and get permanent residency by just buying a property. It's $300,000 US, and it doesn't have to be in the citizenship zones. Now we're talking about regular residency, not citizenship, okay? That's residency without the right to work. Doesn't mean you can't set up your own business, but you can set up your own business if you get permission from the government, but it's not guaranteed you're going to be granted that, okay? Now, obviously, the more people you say you're going to employ, the more likely they'll probably hire you. They'll more likely going to let you set that business up, okay? If you're a citizen, there's pretty much the government can't say unless you've had some sort of background problems or something like this. But if you've gotten citizenship, they've already done that huge background check. They've done 3 background checks on you. There should be no excuses for that unless you've done something from the time you got citizenship to the time you actually applied for that license. Okay, let me go over some requirements they've got. It's been a while since I've actually filled out one of those applications, but I think on there you had to be at least 18 years old. Okay, that was it. There was no, I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember any education requirements. I think it might have asked if you went to high school or whatever. I don't even think that's a requirement. It could be, and things change, so I don't really, I don't think that's a big factor as long as you finished high school and you're at least 18 years old. You have to have a license. It's called a business license to sell insurance, to sell real estate. If you're, this is a, of course, to basically sell here in the Federation. And then you got to have a local police report. They don't ask for anything worldwide. They basically concerned with have you had any problems in St. Kitts. And you got to own a property. Now remember, I've told you there's no errors and omissions insurance that you have to carry for liability issues where you've screwed up somewhere. But you do have to show them that you have proof of title that's that you don't have, that you own outright. Okay. That way, if you screw up or something, you don't have errors and omissions, but someone can go after the property that you got, and you cannot put that property in a trust. You can't put it in LLC. It's got to be in under your name, or they won't grant the license to you. But the big key is you don't have to take a test. They just basically require you to be a citizen. If you're not a citizen, I'm going to tell you, virtually, I won't say it's impossible, but you see all the hassle and headache I had to go through being a citizen, you're not going to get the license, I can tell you. Now, there was one lady that I know over in Nevis. She's been in the business for many, many years. I don't think she's ever become a citizen. She got a real estate license. I don't know how she squeezed through the rim. It could be back then they weren't as strict as they are now. I don't know. But I can tell you, with the way the law is right now, you can forget it. If you don't have that citizenship, you're not going to get in the real estate business. Now, there are certain fields that they just protect people from getting into down here, unless you're a citizen. Cannabis is another one. I mean, there are several of them. But these are the requirements that you got if you want to get started. Now, one thing I will tell you, your regs, if you're in Panama, for instance, and you've got a local company, the brackets are in the 20-something percentile. Last time I looked, it's around 25, 27%, roughly. The top bracket in Panama used to be higher than that. That's higher than what I like. I like it down to 0, close to 0. St. Kitts, if you have a local company, it's a 4% business tax. But if you set up an offshore corporation and the business is done, you got your company outside and you live in St. Kitts, you can't have a local real estate company, but you can be into citizenship by investment. You can be in referring business, but you can't do contracts unless you are licensed in real estate here locally. Okay, and then to do that, you're going to have to set up a local company, and you will pay a 4% business tax on there. Now, like I said, you can avoid it technically with an offshore corporation, but you cannot be doing contracts with people locally. If you do it, it's illegal. Okay, you have to have a local company to be doing that. Basically, it's totally. I'd have to get in with you on the specifics on how that works, and we've got somebody we can refer you to also too, and showing you how that works. But I'm going to tell you, you're going to eliminate a lot of headaches if you get citizenship. That's the best way to go. Again, if you're a doctor, lawyer, you're going to have to take tests. You're going to have to get licensed. Okay. But I will tell you this across the board, a lot less hassle, a lot less headaches than you're going to have in Panama, and far less headaches in the regulations you're going to have in the U.S. I mean, there's just no comparison at all on what you're looking at. Also, while I'm at it too, folks, if you're looking, before I forget, if you're looking to get citizenship with a real estate option, I think I've mentioned to you before, we've got a developer who is offering to pick up the government fees, background check fees, the legal fees. That's $50,000 to $150,000 savings. They're ending that at the end of October. So if you're thinking about getting the real estate option with citizenship, I would be jumping on this, because this is the only company I've seen that's done this, and they really don't need to do it anymore. The market is really picked up here. Properties are starting to go up, so they're ending that. So if you're interested in getting in that, you would need to jump in pretty quick, because they're going to end it at the end of October. So that's something that I would be thinking about there quite a bit. Now, also, let me give you some things on regulations on other things, like for instance, Cialis. It helps to lower your blood pressure. People use it. It's kind of like a replacement for Viagra. It's got less, typically less, problems with, and I'm not a doctor, I'm just telling you from what I've read, and I take it myself, and it has as far as me goes, it has less side effects than Viagra does for myself. But you don't have to have a prescription here. That's incredible. You can literally go in, you don't have to get an appointment with a doctor, pay for a doctor's appointment. That's a big thing, you don't have to go in and do that. And you order the prescription size that you want. A lot of places require you to get a prescription for that. I know this in Panama, you did have to do that. You would have to get a prescription. You'd have to get a doctor's prescription to get that. St. Kitts, they don't require it. Now, obviously, there are some legal medical drugs like morphine and stuff like that. You're not going to walk in a pharmacy and get that right off the shelf, okay? And you're not going to order it behind the counter. Cialis, typically you're going to get that behind the counter, but you won't have to, as far as Cialis goes, you won't have to get a prescription. But anything like morphine, you're going to have a prescription for it. Anything that's, that's a real high-powered painkiller, you're going to have to get some sort of prescription for that. And you're going to have to do that in Panama too. St. Kitts, you don't have that. That's a big plus. Let me tell you some other things too, that from the lack of regulation. St. Kitts down here, if you want to sue someone, they don't have what's called contingency lawsuits, where a lawyer gets a percentage of whatever he sues for, okay? Typically it's 25% outside of court, 33% if he goes in court. You don't have that here, okay? If you sue someone and you lose the court case, you got to pay your legal fees and theirs too. And I got some news for you too. If you think you're going to walk away from the debt, the only way you're going to do it is never come back to St. Kitts, because if you do not pay the debt, what will happen is they'll put you in prison. And there is no time period. I've talked to a lawyer, and she told me there is no stipulated time period for that. So most people that have debts and they've lost in court pay it, because technically you're not going to want to be in a St. Kitts prison. They're way overcrowded, and one night there would make you do everything you can to come up with the money to pay the debt, okay? So you don't have frivolous lawsuits. Anybody knows how the court system works in St. Kitts, they're not going to take a frivolous lawsuit and sue somebody for nothing. And so you don't have all these lawsuits going on. Now, what kind of results do you get from that? Well, first of all, you're not going to have, your insurance rates are going to be a lot less. I mean, a lot less, okay? give you an example. I'm 69 years old. I sold insurance for years. I'm going to tell you how auto insurance works. If you're real young, you're more likely to have an accident, according to insurance. You can disagree with me on that, but most people that have accidents, they're either older people or younger people. So typically insurance is higher when you're young. It gets cheaper as you get older, but then when you start getting really old, it gets a lot higher because your chances of having an accident go up. I'm 69 years old. My car insurance costs me just barely over $100 US a year, okay? Now, why is it so low? Well, you don't have contingency lawsuits here. That's one thing, okay? Things are labor cost is lower down here. Getting cars fixed. It's just across the board, when you lower those factors, it makes a huge difference in what you end up paying in insurance costs. So when you have all these lack of regulation, you got to remember in the USA, the second biggest special interest group is the National Trial Lawyers Association in the US. That's the second biggest. Number one is the Rifle Association. Trial Lawyers Association is number two. And I tell you something, they're never going to let the contingency lawsuits go out the window. It's too much money that's involved in it. And this is why you end up paying so much in fees. They always say, well, the poor person can't get a good lawyer and sue because he can't afford to pay for a good lawyer. And that is true somewhat. But there are a lot of drawbacks, as I've just mentioned. But because of that, your fees, everything here on regulatory issues is a lot less. And this is a big thing that you have to look at when you're running a business. If you got employees, if you got insurance on them here, it's going to be a lot less than where it's going to be other places, okay? And I'll tell you something else too. When I was in Panama, they used to have really bad labor laws not for employees, but they were really bad for employers. There was a guy there years ago by Omaha to Rijos, and he died in a plane crash. A lot of people think Noriega ended up killing him. Nobody really knows. But he instituted incredibly socialistic labor laws in Panama that still stand today. And some of the ridiculous labor laws there are very costly for employers. It's very difficult. I don't know how much that's changed since I was there, which has been probably 15 years ago, but it was very difficult to hire someone on a contracting basis. They had real strict rules on it, even real specific rules, even with companies like Amway and Shackley and companies like that. They were on commission type basis. Very difficult to get things. I don't know exactly how they structured it, but it was very hard. St. Kitts is very libertarian when it comes to hiring people. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you want to hire someone, and let's say you don't want to have to, because you're gonna, if you're a self-employed contractor, they do give you the option at the current time, and this could change, where you don't have to pay Social Security right now, okay? On yourself. You do have to on your employees. Now, and they could change that. I'm just telling you right now, they give you an option if for yourself as the owner of the company. Now, if you got employees, you got to put it on them. But you can do this. If you got employees, you can do what's called, you can set them up as self-employed contractors, but you cannot put them working out of your office. The best way to do is let them work out of their house. They need to sign a contract. They're on straight commission. They need to know that plus they're going to have to set up get their own business license. Okay, now they're getting their own business license here is incredibly cheap. They can get what's called a secretarial general copying license. And the neat thing about this is, it's really cheap. It's like $200 EC a year. That's like about 70 That's like $70 US a year for a license, okay? They got to renew that every year, but this is the key. If they get it in the middle of the year, it's half of 70, which is 35 US, okay? And that's it. And then you just pay them when they produce. That's a great, really, one of the best ways, I think, of bringing in employees, but you bring them in as a self-employed contractor, not technically as an employee, but you need to have a contract stating they're self-employed contractor, that they acknowledge they're on straight commission, they don't work out of your office, and that's the best way to do that. A lot of countries will not let you do that. You'd be surprised. Now the US will let you do that, okay? But they have really ridiculously high taxes depending on which state you're in. If you're in New York or California, they kill you to death on income taxes. State, federal, and Social Security, you lose about 50% of your money. St. Kitts, you got an unincorporated business tax if it's a local company. It's offshore, you can do it where it's zero, okay? It just depends on how you set up the program and how you work it. So everybody's different on how they run their program. And we can give you some ideas on how to go about doing that depending on the type of business you're in and how you're doing it, okay? So these are some things that you really should be looking at if you're looking to set up your own business. You want very little regulation involved in your business. You know, it's got probably less regulation than any country I've ever seen that's not corrupt, that doesn't have, that really does have a good rule of law, but they just have just enough rule of law to make things work. And then the government stays out of your business. This is what, I was just talking to a guy the other day. He was a prior attorney general with the country, and he's actually he was the prior attorney general with the government that's in office now. And we were just talking about neither party wants the income tax here. That's the thing that's neat. You know, it's that's the biggest thing that I like here is you've got both parties that want a conservative, libertarian type government. You don't have to, you know, each year, and there's not that much difference between the Democrats and the Republicans in the US. They both want high taxes. Maybe Republicans want a little bit less taxes. It's just, you still have a socialistic mentality, okay? Neither party wants to bring in a libertarian type government like St. Kitts has got. Folks, if you want to change your life, you need to get your butt down here and get citizenship, get a second passport. If you don't want to live here, fine, but it's going to open up all kinds of options for your business. You can set up a business here, like I said before. If you don't want to be here all the time, you can take off and leave. And then, you know, you can get if you don't want to get the citizenship right away and you want to, you know, you just get the residency and then down the road in 14 years apply for the passport, you can do that. But I'm going to tell you, if you've got money, you're crazy not to just go ahead and get the passport as quick as 45 days. I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. Anyway, if we can help you folks, go to our website again, www.citizenshipquickly.com, and just ask for some help. And I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, put it below. And again, folks, don't forget we got over 750 videos out there today. And this is where you're going to pick up a lot of good tips that's going to help you make good decisions and make a lot of money. And I look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.